Today is the Fed Chair Powell's speech. Is this once again going to be having a negative effect on the market just like last time? Now we have perfectly called this bullish divergence and this push towards the upside. After that we perfectly called this a dead cat bounce and that most likely we are going to be getting huge resistance from this resistance level, and yes indeed right after that we came back towards the downside. And as of right now I still think we are going to be consolidating inside of this bear flag that we are creating right now until eventually we are going to be breaking this one towards the downside, going to be filling up my Bitcoin trade and then bounce towards the upside again. Keep in mind though that it is currently Friday, so we can be expecting a Grayscale spot Bitcoin ETF announcement to be made anytime soon. So definitely we can be expecting a lot of volatility coming in today with this Fed Chair Powell speech that we are about to get and a possibility of this Grayscale spot Bitcoin ETF announcement. So prepare yourself for today. Now in my opinion, I do not think a lot of things will be happening and I'm just going to be watching this support trend line. Whenever we are going to be breaking this support trend line towards the downside again, well then I do think there will be a very good possibility of us actually breaking down and filling this liquidity wick towards the downside. Of course, as we all do know already, is we saw one of the largest liquidation events ever actually happen for Bitcoin, and all the time after we can see a huge liquidation event happening for the Bitcoin price, we can actually see that these kind of wicks that we have just created tend to get filled with downwards price action. Now, of course, I'm not saying this is going to be happening immediately because, of course, we also had a look in towards this bullish divergence and we very well anticipated this bounce towards the upside. But in the end of the day, after some consolidation, I do think we are going to be breaking this one towards the downside and filling up my trade. And whenever we have filled this liquidity wick towards the downside and once again reached our support level and we can be bouncing from off this one with potentially on the daily time frame a bullish divergence being created, well that is going to be the moment where I think we are going to be turning around. I'm going to be entering my Bitcoin trade and then I think we are going to be creating a bigger bounce. Now on the daily time frame we have already formed a hidden bullish divergence, so that is looking pretty good. Now if we can be forming a regular bullish divergence right here at about this level, that would be the indication for me to actually open up my long position. Of course, if you have been following me for a longer time, you already know that the trend is still bullish, and that is why I'm still going to be expecting that this trend is remaining to be getting hold and we are going to be seeing higher prices anytime soon. Now, if we are going to be losing this support level towards the downside, that would flip the whole script, and in that scenario, well, we are going to be having a look in towards some lower prices for Bitcoin. Okay, and two things that we need to keep in mind right here that is going to be happening today is of course this Fed Chair Powell speech and also the Grayscale spot Bitcoin ETF announcement. And a lot of people are actually anticipating bullish news by this Grayscale spot Bitcoin ETF announcement, but how I currently see it is that currently the SEC has already rejected this request of converting their current ETF into towards a spot Bitcoin ETF, so they have pretty much already gotten declined. But right now this case is just about more clarification where the SEC needs to provide valid reasonings of why exactly declining this request. Now the SEC cannot really provide any clear reasonings because of course it is straight out stupid that they are actually declining this request. But in the end of the day, probably BlackRock will be first with their Bitcoin spot ETF. So in the end of the day, I do not think the SEC is going to be turn around and say, all right, here you go, here's your spot Bitcoin ETF. They are just going to be making up another reason of why they are going to be declining it. So in the end of the day, pretty much this will have a pretty negative effect on the Bitcoin market rather than actually a positive effect in my opinion. That's how I see it. Now let's have a look in towards the actual results we are going to be getting. Other than that, today we can be expecting some volatility. We really have to have a look in towards what Jerome Powell has to say today in his speech. Is he going to be having a bullish tonality or once again a bearish tonality? Is he going to be mentioning more rate hikes that are going to be up and coming or not? These are very important things we need to keep in consideration. Now we can be seeing that the US dollar is once again picking up some steam. It is bouncing towards the upside, breaking out this trend line towards the upside. So the US dollar is looking pretty strong right here again. And of course we do know the US dollar and the Bitcoin price is inversely correlated. So whenever the dollar is going up right here, well, Bitcoin is basically going down. So well, that is also not yet looking very good for the Bitcoin price. Now the funding rates are looking very good. It is hitting some bottoming signals. So that is also going to be the reason why I'm still going to be interested in opening up a long position whenever we can be hitting our support levels. Also, we are about to hit September, and as you can be seeing previously around, September has not really been very good for Bitcoin. If you have a look into all of these previous months, well, all of these previous months have actually been in the negative or slightly in a profit. So historically speaking, September is actually a very bad month for Bitcoin and stocks in general. Now one thing that is coming very close is going to be this legendary Bitcoin support level, and whenever we can be once again reaching this one and hitting this one as support, well, I'm definitely going to be opening up some huge long positions, and I definitely do think we are not going to be falling down below this legendary support level. Now if some kind of a scenario like this were to play out, where we are just going to be consolidating, once again hitting this support level before the real bull market is going to be started, well, I would not be surprised for something like this seeing to be getting played out. Now one thing to do keep in mind is that the bull market will absolutely melt faces. We are going to be seeing the Bitcoin halving, we are going to be seeing the Fed interest rate cuts once again, we are going to be seeing interest rates going to be getting cut next year. The spot Bitcoin ETFs will be most likely accepted by next year. We are seeing bullish charts, indicators and on-chain data, and are going to be seeing the next US elections, which will most likely be pretty bullish as well for the Bitcoin price. Now this is going to be the time to be accumulating your Bitcoin. BlackRock is getting involved in towards the Bitcoin price. You are going to be having about 250 days left to accumulate as many Bitcoin as you possibly can. The halving is coming very close, and this is going to be a clear indication of when the next bull market is going to be getting started. So make sure to prepare your Bitcoin. I'm going to be accumulating as many as possible. Make sure to not get caught up in this short-term choppy price action. Be sure to be following me on Twitter to stay up to date about every single market development. And guys, I'll see you in another update video tomorrow morning.